So this is the Nuby Game Light Plus for the Nintendo Game Boy. This was an accessory for the original Nintendo Game Boy, the big gray brick. And what this did is you slid this onto the front of your Game Boy, and then you could open this up like this, and then this folds out like this. And then what it did was it had a magnifying glass. You can see it's making my fingers bigger, which made the screen bigger and easier to see. And then it had a switch up here that turned on a light, which kind of added lighting to the Game Boy, so you could play it in the dark. And then this all folded up nicely. Oh, turn that off. Like that. And this ran on runs on 4 AA batteries, which you can see in there. I'm not going to pop this all the way up because it's actually a big pain in the ass to get this back on there. The batteries are on springs in there, and it's a pain in the ass. But anyways, so it's a pretty big accessory. Nuby, I believe that's how that's pronounced, N-U-B-Y. They made a bunch of different accessories for the original Game Boy. They made one that was very similar to this, but it didn't have the magnifying glass part. It just was a light that added lighting to it. Then they made another one that was this big friggin' monstrosity that you put your Game Boy in, and it had a light and magnifying glasses and speakers and joystick thing. And it was I've never actually seen one in person, but I remember seeing them in advertisements in like Electronic Gaming Monthly and stuff like that. Anyways, let's take a look and see how this goes on to the original Game Boy. Okay, so here we have our original Game Boy. There you can see. So the way this worked was, you can see there's this, so you can see it. There's like a little thing right here. And what you did was that kind of slid into this groove right here that's on the top of the Game Boy. And it can be kind of difficult sometimes to get it to catch, but it looks like I got it there on the first try. And then we can pop this open. That way you want this to be centered. There we go, perfect. Centered right over the screen like that. There we go. So that's what it looks like on there, and it stays on there pretty good. It uses with that thing being slid in there, it creates enough friction or torque or whatever. I can't think of the word. But anyways, it makes it so that it stays on there pretty good. And then, like I said, you can flip this down when you go to play it, and flip this up. And as you can see, though, now we look like some sort of scary ass transformer or something. Also, the other thing about this accessory was, the Game Boy itself was not light. The original one ran off of 4 AA batteries, which basically made it like a big brick. And then this thing itself, is another 4 AA batteries, so it weighs almost as much as the Game Boy itself does. So it almost doubles the weight of the Game Boy, and you can really feel the weight in it. I remember as a kid, like I said, I had one like this, very similar to this, but it didn't have the magnifying glass part. It just had the light part, and it ran off batteries. And I remember as a kid, like laying in bed playing this, and honestly, after a little bit, your arms would get tired, holding up the weight of this, adding 4 more batteries to it and everything. But this is what us kids had before before the Nintendo, for 3DSs and tablets and smartphones that weigh almost nothing. This was our portable gaming. This is what I did a lot of gaming on, in the back of the car, long family road trips and stuff. Anyways, let's pop a game in and we can see the difference, see what it looks like with and without a game in it. I went ahead and grabbed one of my favorite Game Boy games here, Baseball. I think this was one of the release titles. So pop that in, turn it on, and that looks like garbage. Okay, let's actually try it back with a clean game, Super Mario Land. This also was a launch title for the Game Boy, and I know this copy works because I was playing this earlier today, not on this Game Boy, but on a Game Boy Advance that I always have laying around. But anyways, this was a launch title also. Let me go ahead and pop this in and we can see the difference with and without the light and the magnifier. Go ahead and turn that on. And you have to forgive me because I'm playing this through a viewfinder, so it's a little bit difficult. But as you can see, this was, like I said, a launch title, so it was a cool game. It was Mario on the Game Boy, and it felt like Mario, but the sprites were really small. There was a lot of blurring, which you can see on the camera there. And I think for a lot of people said the Game Boy came with Tetris, but I think for a lot of people this is like their second game that they got for the system. And I have a lot of fond memories playing it too. I think this was the first game outside of Tetris that I got for mine when I was a kid, and I played the crap out of this in a road trip in the backseat of the car. And I remember, I love this game, I do, but it did not age well. And the second Super Mario Land 2 is a lot better of a game, much better game. But anyways, let's pop on the Game Light Plus. This thing really sometimes can be a pain in the ass to get on there. There we go. Okay. So I'll pop up the magnifier. And let's turn on the light. There we go. So you can see it makes it a lot bigger. Also the light, even though we weren't in a low light situation, the light helps, does help you see a little bit. I know it doesn't translate on the camera very well, but it does make it easier to play. It actually helps quite a bit with games like Super Mario Land. Let's see if we can see what this looks like in a really low light situation. I'm gonna go ahead and turn the lights off in here, and then we'll come back and see what this looks like. Okay, so now it's pretty dark in here, but as you can see, the screen is illuminated, or at least has the appearance of being illuminated. Let me turn this on real quick. And as you can see, we can see well enough. I know the camera's having a hard time focusing in the dark on this, but you can actually see well enough to play this in the dark. I had an accessory very similar to this. It was also made by Nuby. I think it was just called the Nuby Game Light, and it was a light that was very similar to this. It slid right into the front and it ran off 4 AA batteries, but it didn't have the magnifying glass part of it. And I remember, laying in bed with it at night, playing my Game Boy. Played a lot of Zelda. Legend of Zelda, the Game Boy edition on this. It was a Legend of Zelda. I always want to call it Link to the Past, but that's not right. Link's Awakening. It's actually one of my favorite Zelda games. Oh, see, here's the thing, though. You notice I did that on the viewfinder. If you tilt it too much, you kind of cut off the bottom of the screen, and you don't see there's a pit there. But anyways, I remember laying in bed playing this, and honestly, the weight of the Game Boy with the 4 AA batteries in it and the weight of the light with the 4 AA batteries in it, it would wear your arms out after a little bit. So gaming sessions were definitely short, but that was probably fine. I was in grade school and probably should have been sleeping instead of staying up all night playing Game Boy. But yeah, it was definitely cool being able to play it in the dark. That was the only way. This thing wasn't backlit. It wasn't like a Game Gear where you could play it in the dark. But I guess Nintendo had the last laugh because this sold way better, and these things, when you find them at garage sales, still work, whereas Game Gears, for the most part, due to bad capacitors that end up leaking or something, they don't work for the most part. The screens are usually really dim, or the sound doesn't work at all. So Whereas these Game Boys, you know, man, I remember riding down the street on my bike when I was a kid, and it falling out of my pocket and like bouncing 6 times on the asphalt, and it had a couple of scrapes and stuff on the top of it, but it still worked just fine. Anyways, let's go ahead and pop the lights back on here. Okay, so final thoughts on the Nuby Game Light Plus. Is it worth getting? Is it worth looking for? Is it worth, you know, going out trying to find one? You know, I would say if you come across one of these, like at Goodwill, or I actually bought this at a local record store that sells used video game stuff as well, and they carry stuff from Atari all the way up to modern stuff. But anyways, they had this, and I think I paid like $6 for it. I think it was $5.99, which I think is worth it, especially because I collect for the Game Boy. But would I buy it to like use it every day, you know, to play on an everyday Game Boy? You know, if you're not a Game Boy collector, I would say I wouldn't go out of my way to get it. I mean, the Game Boy itself is already kind of obnoxious. I mean, you're not going to pull this out of your pocket on the bus or whatever, and you know, pull this down and start playing Tetris. You're going to look like a tool bag. It makes much more sense than having all of this and all of these batteries and everything. You know, if you're just a casual gamer and not a hardcore collector, just want to play the games, is to just get yourself something like this. Game Boy Advance SP. See, it's much smaller. Plays Game Boy Advance games, obviously, but it will play Game Boy and Game Boy Color games. And the screen is backlit. The one weird thing is Game Boy Color and Game Boy games look kind of weird sticking out of the bottom, but whatever, you know, it's fine. But these are, where's the power switch on this? There it is. Screen's already backlit. It's nice and clear. The blurring issues are gone. There's a way to increase the screen size too. I know there is. There's a way to get it to stretch too. But anyways, this makes a lot more sense to play Game Boy games on. Like I said, it's backlit already. It's much smaller. This fits really nicely in your pocket, even with a game in it. And like I said, Game Boy Advance games, which we'll be talking about this game later, another episode. You know, with these, they fit in nice and snug. So yeah, get yourself, if you're just wanting to play Game Boy games, get yourself one of these. You can play Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, you know, pretty much the whole Game Boy series. You can play on one of these. It's backlit. It's got rechargeable battery pack, so you're not eating AA batteries. I would only get yourself one of these if you're, like I said, a hardcore game collector, or you just want the nostalgia. If you know, you had one of these and you want the nostalgia of playing on it. But honestly, you're eating 8 AA batteries between the Game Boy and the Game Light Plus on there. So yeah, get a Game Boy Advance. Pass this thing up unless you really need it.